beloved the Eel River is here on the North Coast, and anyone who doesn't already love the Eel River, I mean, just look at it. It's just one of those days where the conditions are right and that emerald green color is coming through. It's really a special resource, and I'm glad to see this kind of turnout. I want to thank the Wiyot tribe, of course, for all of their collaboration and leadership. And you Rotarians out there, thanks to you for taking such a passionate interest in the Eel River, for caring about rivers and fish. I meet with and speak to a lot of Rotary clubs, but I think this is the first time I've been in a Rotary event focused on a subject like this, and it's pretty cool. I know Rotary does a lot of great work locally, all over the world, but really wonderful to see you embracing this. And you chose a good partner in CalTrout. I'm a big fan. CalTrout shows such leadership on Eel River issues and on so many other important issues that I've had a chance to work with them on over the years. Okay, the old proverb, it's a blessing to live in interesting times. I won't take you into the part of that proverb that involves Washington and like the fate of our democracy and all of the madness that's filling your newsfeed probably by the hour, if not the minute. That's the stuff that I gotta live, and I can't really turn away from it for too long. But you don't have to be totally consumed by all that. You can also do other good things here in the community and here in the Eel River Basin. So thank you for that and for giving me a little bit of a diversion from some of that other madness to talk about this, because I'm passionate about this Eel River and about all of our California rivers and fisheries. It's a fascinating moment for the Eel River. On the one hand, we have an amazing opportunity before us with where we are in the FERC proceedings with PG&E, and we know that we have an opportunity to do maybe one of the biggest things that could bring this Eel River back to life, take out the two dams that have been blocking hundreds of miles of fish passage, access to prime habitat. That's a phenomenal opportunity. We know the dams are sort of relics of another time. They no longer serve their original function. PG&E kind of got tired of losing money on them. They don't produce a lot of hydropower, and it was so much more cost effective as a business decision for PG&E to decide that they would, instead of relicensing, which we kind of began this process thinking they would try to find a way through the relicensing process, and you can sort of understand how they along the way decided maybe it would be better to just abandon and decommission and walk away from all of the liabilities and the losses and the complexities of trying to relicense a project like that. So it does present this amazing opportunity to take out Scott Dam and Cape Horn Dam and open up that wonderful fish passage for the Eel River. I know that is exciting probably to many of you. But it also presents something that folks in the Russian River Basin are very concerned about, and I represent both basins. So I'll talk with you a little bit about the very real concern and fear down there, because for the past 100 years, there are folks in the Ukiah Valley, Potter Valley, in the Alexander Valley, northern Sonoma County, that have come to depend on those diversions from the Eel River, and it's not a simple thing for them to find replacement supplies for the water that they've been counting on. And so it's scary for folks in that part of the world. And that's why I sort of saw some of this coming about 10 years ago. And I decided to convene stakeholders in both basins to start talking about this stuff, start getting ready for some of the changes that we thought were likely coming. And we created a process we called my ad hoc committee. Some of you were on it. Just looking around this room, I see some folks that were in some of those ad hoc meetings, and we pretty quickly came to something close to consensus around this thing we call the two-basin solution. And I'm going to just digress for a moment and tell you where I got the idea of a two-basin solution that was premised on co-equal goals for each basin. And it's because In another part of California, I worked on a really big and historic river restoration project when I was an environmental attorney. And actually, CalTrout was one of my clients. I worked for NRDC, leading a coalition of 14 environmental and fishing groups, including commercial fishermen, recreational fishermen, a whole bunch of environmental NGOs, trying to put water back in the San Joaquin River. And most people don't realize the San Joaquin is the second longest river in California, and was completely dewatered when the federal government built Friant Dam back in the 1940s. Used to have the largest spring run salmon population on the West Coast. I mean, 600,000 fish in a typical year would come up the San Joaquin. It was just an amazing salmon fishery. But when they closed Friant Dam, not only did they block all of that upstream passage, about 30, 40 miles below the dam, they diverted so much water that it just went dry, it became sand. And so for the past 50 plus years, folks who crossed the San Joaquin River, there was literally a sign near Los Banos, you're crossing the San Joaquin River, there's no water in it, it's just sand. And that's what used to be this great, amazing salmon resource. So I was part of a group that litigated to put water back in that river because there's some state law that says, Fishing Game Code Section 5937, if you're interested, says you got to release enough water if you have a dam to keep the fish downstream in good condition, and obviously they did not do that with Friant Dam in the San Joaquin. But that's going up against some pretty mighty interests in the San Joaquin Valley with the Central Valley Project, a lawsuit against the United States, the Bureau of Reclamation, a lawsuit that came to include all of the irrigation districts that depended on the Friant unit down in the San Joaquin. And it went on for a couple decades, just drawn out, really difficult, protracted litigation. I came in, though, to try to settle it. And I got to represent this environmental and fishing coalition in a settlement framework that was based on co-equal goals. Co-equal goals for the river to have self-sustaining, naturally reproducing salmon for the first time in 60 plus years, and co-equal goals for the farmers in the San Joaquin Valley to have water supply reliability, including some makeup supplies and investments in infrastructure and other things that could keep them whole. But that's where I kind of got this idea for co-equal goals. And when I started struggling through some of the complexities of the Eel River and the Potter Valley Project relicensing, it seemed like a pretty good candidate for co-equal goals. And so that's what we settled on. The co-equal goals being on the eel side to achieve that fish passage and to make sure that, the goal is more than just to have fish passage and be done. The goal is to have really flourishing, naturally reproducing, self-sustaining runs of salmonids on the Eel River and enough abundance that you can have harvest and other things that commercial fishermen care about. On the Russian River side, it's pretty obvious what the co-equal goal would need to be. They're going to need some water. They're going to need to have some type of continued diversion in a fish-friendly way. And so we had great meetings and conversations. We made space at the table for other stakeholders that wanted to be in those conversations, including folks who did not want those dams to come out. It was a diverse set of interests. And then along the way, we learned that PG&E was going to be decommissioning and not relicensing, and that kind of changed the conversation. They tried to sell the dams, nobody wanted them. There was a process where they offered them up for auction, nobody bid on them, and you can sort of understand why, because in addition to all the money that PG&E was losing, we come to find out there's a major seismic vulnerability with Scott Dam, especially. It's at Scott Dam. In fact, I was meeting with the PG&E CEO and hydro team. I have a number of times, and their hydro expert tells me that Scott Dam is the one dam in PG&E's entire portfolio that keeps him up at night because the seismic risk is so significant, and that's why they've had to drop the storage for the last several years at Lake Pillsbury by 25% to try to lower the risk of something going wrong. So for so many reasons, you just sort of understand how PG&E defaulted into this business decision. And then at that point, on a path to decommissioning, the ad hoc process that we had put together, the stakeholder process, kind of went dark, and this became a PG&E decommissioning proceeding, with most of us on the outside looking in. But the work that we did, the science and the coalition building and the collaboration, ended up being very useful, because a few months ago, and this is a real milestone that everyone should be very excited about, this collaboration involving the Sonoma Water Agency, Mendocino Inland Water and Power Commission, the Round Valley Tribes, and Humboldt County is part of that as well, came together and proposed a fish-friendly diversion structure as part of PG&E's decommissioning and abandonment plan that will go to FERC in July. And PG&E accepted that and made it part of its plan. The reason that's a really big deal is that it enables everything to move fast, and it enables everything to move together, so that those who care about the fish side of this will get what they need with the fish passage improvements, and those in the Russian River Basin who are very nervous about being stranded without any water are going to know that their fish-friendly diversion will be integrated with the project. And so it fits nicely into kind of what we started out with, the co-equal goals. Not one side throwing the other under their bus, but both kind of meeting their essential needs and moving forward together. So being part of that PG&E plan is really important, and I think everyone should understand what a huge milestone that really was. And PG&E, by the way, could have easily said no to that, because they're on a mission to get the heck out of there. They're tired of losing money. They've got other things to do, bigger fish to fry. And so obviously they wanted to see that this was viable, that this could actually work. And the fact that they said, yeah, we'll include it, is sort of a stamp of approval. Now here's the other exciting thing about this two-basin solution. It's one of those multi-benefit collaborations that can attract public funding. And that's not the case if the stakeholders in one basin are just throwing the others under the bus and everybody's out for themselves. When folks come together, especially on complex water challenges like this, and find win-win solutions, you can open up significant amounts of public funding, and we've done that. We've actually secured pretty significant state and federal funding. I secured some federal funding for the design of that fish-friendly diversion. I think they're calling it the NERF, the New Eel River. Is that right, Hank?
Yes.
New Eel River Facility. That's the acronym for it. Will be a run-of-the-river diversion that does not impair fish passage. It'll divert water mostly in winter months. In super wet years, that diversion can go in to some of the summer months, but it's going to work very well with the needs of the fish in the Eel River. And then we got about 15 more million from the Bureau of Reclamation to actually construct the NERF. Some of that money, is in question, like pretty much all federal grants are right now. But we think we've got a strong case to make that that's water infrastructure that should not be politicized, should not be controversial, and we're going to fight to try to make that happen. Now, all that's very exciting and very promising, but here's where there's still some stuff to worry about. This is not a mission accomplished moment quite yet for anyone, because there are folks right now busily trying to politicize this process and to blow it up. And honestly, what they really see is the opportunity of Donald Trump to try to undo all of the progress that we have made. And so they have characterized this project in ways that I think are very misleading. They have tried to suggest that this was all secretive and everyone's blindsided by it. And we've been having meetings on this for about 10 years. I have been trying in every way I can to bring stakeholders and elected officials and others to the table so that we could understand the different possibilities. Everyone knew changes were coming to the Eel River and the Potter Valley project. But they're kind of building this narrative that the poor folks at Lake Pillsbury were blindsided or being thrown under the bus by environmental radicals, and that all of the water to the Russian River Basin could be cut off. None of this is true, but it has gotten the attention of some folks back in Washington, and this is sort of a moment where you got to worry about that. I don't think it's a simple thing where an executive order from Donald Trump could somehow make this a federal dam that would be owned and operated by the Bureau of Reclamation. And the economics of it would be scandalous. I mean, this would be a fiscal fiasco extraordinaire. But there are folks seriously trying to make it happen right now. And I think all of us need to just try to stay engaged and try to keep steering this back to something that makes sense for both basins. We are not throwing the folks in the Russian River Basin under the bus here. We are meeting their essential needs. And I want to thank those of you up here in Eel River country for the compromise that you have made, frankly, in agreeing to a continued fish-friendly diversion as part of the two-basin solution. It shows good faith and goodwill, and you know, it's what makes a great project, a potential model, I think, for other places. And obviously, it's going to be great for the Eel River too when we make it happen. So that's a little bit about where we are. I continue to think the two-basin solution is the only way forward. And I'm sure that we will make it happen. I know we will make it happen. The only question is, will there be a little bit more drama between now and when this sensible, wonderful win-win model for other parts of the country is actually realized. But thanks for having me. I'm happy to hang around and answer questions or be part of what other dialogues you may have.
Thank you.